So we got Nick Lyston. He wants to talk about veganism.
Oh, cool.
Well, hello. Am I audible?
Yeah. Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Hi, Nick.
Hi. You can hear me? I've never tried this.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
I've got
Okay,
it says here, can a decent person take the lives of a vulnerable, love-capable beings with their only end being taste, pleasure, habit, and convenience?
Yep, that's it.
Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, there's a typo there. There shouldn't be an A before vulnerable, but other than that, that's it. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, I assume you're a vegan.
I was gonna say that too. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, or that I'm not a decent person, or I don't think that I'm a decent person. But no, I've been a vegan for 30 years, and I also don't think I'm really a decent person. So you can feel like you're not a decent person and be a vegan, but you can't not be a vegan and seriously consider yourself a decent person.
You could consider yourself or feel like one, right? Still, maybe somebody else might not consider you one, but you yourself might not feel bad about it.
Oh yeah. No, I kind of feel like there's something like deep down that would tell us that we're doing something wrong, even if we may not be conscious of it. Kind of like a deep down feeling.
I'm not sure that happens with everybody. I'm really not. But I maybe it's something that should happen with everybody. I have always thought that everybody who eats meat should have to kill and clean an animal at least once in their life. Oh, wow. So to understand what it is that you're what you're eating. So
the problem is that like you might have like a serial killer like Jeffrey Dahmer, and it's like, well, you better kill a human if you're willing to do it. If you're willing to eat them, he's like, yeah, sure, I'll go ahead and do it. It doesn't necessarily mean you're.
But I'm just saying an animal, I'm not just saying an animal. Like even if it's just a bluegill, just a small fish that you're going to eat. I just think that everybody should have to do it at least once. I'm not saying people should go out and start being serial killing to eat humans. But
I'm just saying
I think everybody should understand the process behind causing death and preparing an animal for food.
Right. No, I understand that. I guess I just don't know if it's necessarily a good thing for people to sensitize themselves to such a degree that they can do these horrible things. Maybe it's better for people to kind of do it without actually realizing the harm they're doing.
Right? From my experience, from people doing it, a lot of people get just the opposite. Like, wow, I don't realize how horrible and nasty this is until I actually did it, got my hands in it. So that's why one of the reasons I think people should have to do it, because it brings that realization to you. And I don't see a lot of satisfaction coming out of it from the people doing it, honestly. So
that's a good point.
But I don't know, you're having a different experience than I am.
No, I think that's a good point. I think it's nice. I mean, the problem is that it's still encouraging someone to do this violent action as opposed to just directly saying, look at some of this footage, see how horrible it is, and then just stop doing it, man. Like, you don't have to try to see if you would actually be willing to harden your heart enough to do it yourself. And yeah, maybe that will cause some people to go vegan because they just can't do it. But a lot of people might push themselves through it and do something really, really bad, and then have to suppress all that guilt inside themselves until they explode. I mean, it's better just to give it up.
Oh, then maybe see, that's you're like bolstering my point. If that's the way you feel about it after having done something like that, then maybe you shouldn't be eating meat. And I think a lot of people come away from that experience that way. I personally am not a vegan. I'm a kind of like a semi-vegetarian. So I'm doing it for health reasons, not for moral reasons. So obviously, because I'm not a vegan, but I think I honestly think if you're going to eat meat, you should have to know that that's what it takes. That it's this horrible, bloody, violent, nasty thing that is putting meat on your plate. It's not a question of self-satisfaction. It's a question of demonstrating what a horrible, violent act it is.
So why aren't you? I mean, I am really curious, given the fact that you know how horribly violent it is, and I assume you also know that you could be totally healthy on a plant-based diet. What could possibly you be using to justify participating in something you know is so violent.
I have different moral standards than you do, for one. I think life is life. No matter what life it is, we shouldn't be destroying it if we don't have to. And I don't draw the line between sentient life and non-sentient life. I'm not even sure where we draw that line. So right, it's sort of like a Loki's wager kind of thing. You can have all the head but none of the neck. So I feel like if we have to kill something to live, we just have to deal with that. I feel just as bad about killing a carrot as I do about killing a fish. So,
I mean,
you can laugh, but that's the way I feel about it. I think it's just the same.
Do you have any pets, like dogs or cats, like companion animals?
No, I don't.
Or well,
I have a Great Dane.
Family, right? Well, I mean, if like a fireman came into your house and saw that there were like 3 houseplants, and he chose to like save the 3 houseplants over, let's say, your son and your dog, and then you're like, why did you could have taken saved my son and my dog? Why did you save these 3 houseplants? And it's like, well, look, I think that all life is the same, plant life, animal life, so I saved 3 lives. Like, what do you want? I saved more lives. And I think that's kind of a morally sketchy.
I don't think Kelly was trying to say that he had like a living creature or a vegetable on the same level. He said he feels just as bad about killing a fish as he does eating a carrot. In other words, it's not a problem. It doesn't bother him, is what I think is what he meant.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that the houseplants' lives are more important than the humans' lives. I don't think a dog's life is more important than a human's life. I don't think the houseplant's life is more important than the dog's life. I mean, we all have our preferences, right? I just try not to draw those preferential lines. That's all. You can go in the opposite direction, because when I say this, almost all vegans do. You want to talk about cannibalism now? Because that's the other direction this conversation usually goes with, with me and vegans.
I consider myself the furthest thing from even a vegetarian, never mind a vegan. You'll have to fight me to get to eat a vegetable most times. Outside of potatoes, that's pretty much the only thing. I like Indian food, for example, because it's just a big bowl of meat and sauce and bread. Now, I'm going to just take the selfish side of it and say, look, I'm older. This was how I was raised, and I'm going to my grave eating meat, and there's nothing that's going to make me really change my mind on that. However, I would fight for your right to be vegan for as long as I possibly could. I even think that vegetarianism is almost a certainty in the future of mankind, at least. Veganism, I feel, is a little extreme. It's a little much, but vegetarianism, even my own nephew, who's 10 years old now, there's certain meats that he's just like, nah, I'm good. And I think it's only a matter of time before, our great grandchildren are going to be like, this is a cow, I'm not eating that. And I think that's just the way the world's going to go. And it also just becomes easier too, right? Because you're a vegan, so I don't have to tell you. You have to watch and monitor your diet, everything you're eating all the time, to make sure that you're getting the vitamins you need. And it's a lot of work to be a vegan, but as technology and science advances, we'll add more things to our carrots and oranges to get protein and things like that we need. And yeah, I can see a world that goes vegetarian at the very least. I live in a country of 40 million people. 1 million of them are vegetarian. And there's a vegetarian item on every menu in my country. So yeah, I think it's a very real prospect.
Now, I already brought up cannibalism at the beginning when I brought up Jeffrey Dahmer, so we've already kind of covered that.
Oh, sorry.
But no, I was just joking. Like, I did bring up cannibalism, actually.
That's cool.
Yeah. I just think that, like, when it comes to like if we look at ourselves, look kind of like the worst actions that we can possibly do, I would say it would probably be somewhere along the lines of taking advantage of a position of power to oppress a group of individuals that can't speak for themselves and are totally vulnerable, and oppressing them to such a degree that more animals are killed, more birds and mammals who are all capable of love are killed in the span of a single week than every human in the entire planet. Like every month, there's multiple. You know, if they were all humans, it would be, and we're on billions, almost 100 billion every year. That doesn't include the fish. So it just seems to me like if we really wanted to if we really want to eliminate the worst thing that we can do in our lives, it would be starting with being, with not participating in purchasing animal products. And I think that,
Right.
And that's why I said, like, how can anyone really consider themselves a decent person if they're not willing to at least do that, especially in a modern time when it's so easy to eat and thrive and find tons of different variety on a completely plant-based diet? Like, what could possibly justify it? I guess that's
terrible. What's so terrible about like cheese and dairy, just in general speaking? Just curiosity. Like,
well,
why vegan?
So you're still paying for. It's a categorical difference between paying for a violent, lethal exploitation of an animal or not. And the dairy industry definitely is on the side of paying for a lethal, violent exploitation of an animal. I mean, I'm a veterinarian. I actually spent my clinical year working a lot in dairy farms, so I can tell you firsthand that that we would come into the dairy farm and look at their charts, and the moment their cow's milk production started decreasing around the third or fourth pregnancy, we'd take a red marker and just put an X through it and send that, and that animal would go to the slaughterhouse. Like, that's her reward for having her baby stolen from her, and if their male killed year after year to keep her in milk. And then her reward is after a fraction of her normal lifespan, a quarter of her lifespan at most, she's sent to a slaughterhouse to join her calves that were sent there when they were first born. I like, why would anyone want to pay for an industry that does that to helpless animals?
If practices were different, would you be okay with dairy products then? If it was just the practices were different?
I mean, so like a practice in which the owners.
Let's just say it's 40,000 acres of cows, and they're free to breed and live all they want. But once a week, we'll come out with a truck and we milk a few, right?
Now, just mathematically, you get exponential growth if you weren't killing all the males. So you'd end up, having like hundreds of thousands of cows in a small tract of land. So it wouldn't really work mathematically.
It's just a hypothetical question. I think we're not looking at the feasibility of doing this, but
I'm trying to figure out where the line is drawn. Is it really about dairy, or is it about the treatment of animals?
So I'm uncomfortable with using another animal as any sort of means to an end, but I suppose there are times where you could have a reciprocal relationship with an animal where you're getting something from them and giving something to them that's of equal value. Certainly when someone like adopts a dog from a shelter, saving their life, then they have this love for the dog. If the dog runs and gets fetches their paper or something, they're getting a benefit from the dog, or the dog defends their house, or even becomes a seeing eye dog. I mean, that's a reciprocal relationship with a dog they rescue. I think that's a fine relationship with an animal. It's a little more.
So it'd be like okay for
this hypothetical cow.
So it'd be okay for me to have my own cow and take care of my own cow. Just a cow. So I'd have time and the ability to take care of it and make my own cheese and milk the cow and make my own butter. That would be okay with you.
And keep all of the males alive in a big pasture, because she has to be pregnant in order to have a baby, in order to give milk. So she has to. So she'd have a calf every year. So you'd have to keep all those.
It doesn't work that. It doesn't. I thought it worked the same way as it did with humans. As long as you kept milking them, they would keep giving milk. That's with human people, they don't have to have a baby every year to keep giving milk, as long as they just never stop giving milk. That's how midwives, made money throughout the medieval times.
Yeah, no,
that's
right? True. I mean, no one ever. Yeah, I have heard that. Well, that doesn't happen just because in the dairy industry, just because it's a very inefficient process. So I haven't really seen that firsthand myself. That sort of practice of kind of keeping a cow around for a long time. I'm just trying to stretch their milk out, even if it's not as prolific as it was. I mean, these cows been bred to produce way more milk than they really should have to. And that makes them, prone to things like mastitis. And I guess I don't like, it makes me kind of uncomfortable with this idea of having a cow like this. But I definitely think that in the spectrum of behaviors, you could probably do that and maybe still consider yourself a decent person. So maybe that's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, because it seemed to me like when in your description of your problem, as Justin pointed out, thank you, Justin, it seemed like your problem really was with the industry and the way the animals were treated.
Well, yeah.
What about eggs?
It's also that, well, eggs is similar to the dairy. Like they sex the way they hatch all of these eggs, then half of them are females and half of them are males, and the males go in a conveyor belt and ground up alive. And so whereas the dairy industry...
The eggs we eat are unfertilized, though,
yeah,
right? So, they're just
that's
laid eggs.
Right.
Yeah, that's not egg
Yeah, I'm talking about hatchery. So, so in the same way that 9 to 10 million male calves are killed on nearly the first day of life because they're excess to the milk industry, about 7 to 8 billion little baby male chicks are either suffocated in a big bag or put into a macerator the moment they're hatched because they're not useful to the egg industry. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you're paying for when you buy eggs, in addition to all the suffering that the females go through, which is substantial. But the eggs themselves,
so what
not fertilized. So
where do we draw the line between like sentience or consciousness and non-sentience or consciousness?
Well, some vegans will kind of disagree with how much emphasis I put on this, but for me, I'm very I think that the fact that birds and mammals in particular have been shown to be able to express very complicated emotional states like grief and love, mm-hmm. It's very I feel like our first step should be eliminating all of our impact on birds and mammals. I still think that we don't know a lot about fish, and science is kind of suggesting that fish are capable of feeling pain and maybe other complex emotions too. I think we should err on the side of caution when it comes to fish, even if I'm not as confident that they're capable of by their deaths losing the opportunity to experience the sort of transcendental feelings of joy and love that that you and I make our lives worth living. I don't know if fish are able to experience that sort of thing, but I think they might be able to. So I leave them alone.
Yeah,
Now insects.
I've seen research that kind of goes. I've seen research that seems like it goes both ways. It from what I've seen, it seems like humans and fish are a lot alike. Some of them are sentient and some of them aren't. So,
well, yeah. So
I've definitely. I'll let you know that I definitely, in my mind, have had a lot of hard thoughts on, at the very least, say dropping pork from my diet because of pigs are incredibly intelligent, and I am a dog person, and I've heard that pigs are smarter than dogs. So I've definitely had those long hard thoughts, but I feel like I'm just I don't want to say I'm a victim of my generation, but I'm a Canadian, so I've had caribou, I've had so many different types of meats like moose and deer and stuff too, and I like it. It's my primary source of my diet. But if I'm ever lucky enough to have a kid of my own someday and they come to me and they're vegetarian or vegan, hey man, let's do it. You got my full support. Do whatever we can to keep that going. Because like I said, I think the future does at the very least lie in vegetarianism, but I'm not 100% sure that, you make a great case as far as the dairy thing with killing the male calves and stuff, but I'm sure genetics will get to a point where we can just choose which sex we need and want, and hopefully we can stop that practice. so that we can still have chocolate milk, because I like chocolate milk.
I know.
I think
we
nowadays
were talking about, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't
go ahead.
Stop. Oh well, I mean, I was going to
go ahead.
that nowadays. Oh, can you hear me still? Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
I was just going to say, go ahead. You're the guest. I want you to talk first.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, just please interrupt me if I'm going on too long, because I tend to ramble sometimes. And I think that
I will.
Really some great alternatives. Oh, you good. All right. And there are great alternatives now to like chocolate, like stuff like chocolate milk that tastes amazing. But what I really want to focus on is this idea of being kind of really like addicted to something, like consuming like an animal product. And I understand addiction because I have a lot of behavioral addictions myself. It's why I spend a lot of time doing Buddhist meditation. I just finished a 20-day silent meditation retreat. And I find that like it's really helpful to kind of just sit there and sort of focus your attention on yourself, but really kind of clear your mind, have full control of your mind. And I think this is the way that we can overcome our addictions, is by having total peace and clarity of our mind. And what they teach you in these practices is that you can't have a clear mind. You cannot find wisdom if you are behaving in an immoral way. And as I said before, I think that the worst thing we can possibly do is take advantage of someone that's helpless to us. So I feel like the best way to overcome like an addiction like that is to really make yourself aware of how horrible it is for these animals. And then it will be like lifting up like this like kind of the shell that you didn't even know you had. It's a liberating feeling. It doesn't require any sort of willpower at all. You just have to think about the victims. It's really easy. Sorry, that's a babble.
I'm curious about something. I want to ask you a question, if I may. Would you consider a vegan diet for a dog cruelty to the dog, or are you one of those people that think that like even our pets could live a vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, the data is now showing that dogs in particular can thrive on a vegan diet. In fact, the two, did I actually flip off? Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh! I thought I clicked you off.
We're here.
Yeah. So the oldest two living dogs on record are the ones that were actually vegan-fed dogs or plant-based dogs. So for dogs, it's nothing. Cats is more difficult, but recent data is now showing that if you're careful and make sure they have enough taurine, you can also feed cats a plant-based diet as well. And I have had success with doing that myself. Now, as far as you have to watch out for stones and crystals and stuff like that. Like, you can have a blockage, especially with male cats. So you have to, monitor what you're doing, because you don't want to acidify their urine or make it too basic. You have to watch their levels.
Yeah, it's the same if as a human becoming a vegan, you have to monitor like crazy all of your intakes and vitamins and things, right?
Well, no, that's more cats. We're omnivores, and I think it's a lot easier for us to really be flexible. We're pretty flexible when it comes to this stuff. We only need a B12 supplement, and that's it. But cats is a little more difficult, but it's definitely doable. Snakes, I don't think that there's a way of doing it with snakes. So that's a bit of a hard one for like snakes. The dogs and cats, sure.
Actually, I've recently heard about snakes becoming a possibility for like a new popular protein, because they breed a lot heavily and quickly. And I've never had the meat myself, but I do know some people who love snakes, and even they struggle with that whole concept because they're huge snake fans, but they're also meat fans. So they're definitely on the fence.
Okay. Well,
is there a
I guess
certain,
we don't know how to feed them.
What I always wonder is usually veganism is a moral thing, and it's about sentience, right? Like you've been saying, sentience or consciousness. So is it, and So, and that's why people think it's okay to eat a plant, even though it's still alive, because it has no sentience or no consciousness, at least that we know of at this point. I mean, there are a few signs, like trees creating antibodies if a tree on the other side of the grove develops a disease. So we know they're communicating with each other somehow. But I'm wondering, where is it that we draw the line with animals, with sentience? Like as you said, pigs, cows, birds, those are things that most people eat and are familiar with. But what about other things like shrimp? I mean, I don't think a shrimp shows any sign of sentience. Is it okay to eat shrimp, or?
I think the one the vegans mostly debate about is mollusks, because mollusks don't have such a nervous system. And some talk about jellyfish, that there's neural nets, so who knows what they're experiencing. I think certainly I think if someone were to eat oysters and other mollusks, I think they can make a reasonable case that they're avoiding eating sentient animals. I think it's a little bit harder for animals with central nervous systems, including the shrimp. I mean, bees are remarkably capable of doing cognitive tasks that you would never imagine. Like ants seem to recognize themselves in mirrors, and bees are able to engage in metacognition studies where they kind of know what they know. They actually make reasonable predictions upon how good they are at a task, which is kind of wild. That means they have to wager on their answer, and they do it. And so I don't know, I'm not comfortable with really exploiting any of these animals. That doesn't mean that I think they're all on the same level. In a burning building, I'm not, I'm going to, save a person, a human or a dog over a bee or a fish.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Just because, just as Justin pointed out before, I don't think that they're all on the same level, but I do wonder, where can we draw these lines at? And that's what I don't know if you recall me mentioning No Loki's Wager, or if you know anything about it, but that's basically what it is when we have to draw a line somewhere and we don't know where that line is, how do we know? How do we know what's okay to eat in this case? If we all became vegans and we all decided not to eat sentient things, how do we know what we can and can't eat? Who's going to decide that? That's what I'm wondering. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to throw a monkey wrench into the works, I guess, to point out what some of the problems that we might have with it in the future.
So I actually have kind of, I think, a clever response to this, which is that we take cues from the legal system when, especially the idea of juries have to be, you have to find that someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt before you condemn them to death. If we took something like that from them, then it would be the same question. Are we sure beyond a reasonable doubt that this individual is not sentient? And if we are sure beyond a reasonable doubt, maybe for an oyster, I'm certain beyond a reasonable doubt that an oyster is not sentient, and therefore I can send them to death without being concerned that I'm wrongfully doing so. Similar as sending and all of these animals, we have science and studies, and you could have committees that really determine what is the likelihood that this being is capable of sentience, is capable of love, and then make our determinations similar as we would for criminal cases. That's kind of how I think we should do it.
Okay, Justin, you got some feedback on that idea?
I mean, I think if I summarize the whole conversation, veganism is definitely more of a moral point of view and less about diet, as opposed to where vegetarians generally are just trying to be healthier. I don't know that as a society we'll ever completely get to veganism unless we can grow certain things in a lab, like animal byproducts in that case. I mean, if a cheetah can have an antelope, can I have a cow? Is it okay?
I mean,
I'm a carnivore. In that respect. Yeah, I'm just saying. Now, if I had to go Kelly's route, where I had to kill my own meat, and there's no way I could never do it. There's just no chance. So I'd probably would starve. To be completely honest.
I mean, look, I don't think so. I mean, especially not nowadays. And look, we live in a civilized world, and we don't take our moral cues from lions. I mean, they will take over pride and kill all the babies and force the female to mate with them so they can have no genetic offspring. That's actually something humans do. Actually, stepfathers are 70 times more likely to be responsible for the death of their stepchild than biological fathers are. And it's like what lions do. It's like if you kill a non-related offspring, then your genes will survive. But if that stepfather went in court and said, "Your Honor, this is what lions do," so I should be fine with killing my stepchild, they'd be laughed out of court. They had the book thrown at them. So we can't use the fact that, other animals prey upon, the animals that they're stronger than them as a justification for humans to act that way. I think we're beyond that, right?
Well, you could say that some humans are on the same, using the same argument. You could say that some humans are murderers, so you shouldn't act like a human.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what it is to act like a human. I mean, what does it even act like a lion? I mean, you should look up. There's a lioness named Kamuniak that adopted all these oryx calves. She wouldn't kill the baby oryx calves, so she actually starved herself to death protecting this pride of oryx calves that she collected. She wouldn't kill them, So what is it to be a lion? I mean, she was very gentle to those babies.
I mean, I consider myself part of that food chain and at the apex of that food chain, and part of that chain for me is meat. It will always include meat, and I mean that's just going to. But I'll tell you what, I've heard the stories even before you've brought them up here about the industry and how it functions, and I don't like it. But me going vegan to go up against it and protest against it isn't really a path for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, Nick, I have really enjoyed this really call. I really have. I think. Yeah, I think we've had a really good conversation here. I really do. And unfortunately, I hear these conversations turn a bit acrimonious too often. So I really appreciate you calling. And honestly, I think you should call back and talk to Dan sometime, our regular host here. Dan is, in fact, a vegan. Oh, so I think, yeah, so I think great. Maybe having yeah, I think try to call back when he's on.
I was warned.
I do have some calls stacking up in the queue though, so I want to move on, but I do want to encourage you to call back again.
You guys are great. I loved it. Thanks a lot for the invitation. I'll certainly take you guys up on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. You've been a great caller. I really appreciate it. So have a great night, and again, I hope you do call again. I really appreciated that call. That was a good one.